Lord is holy in this place. We sing unto him. We bring the fragrance of the praise to his throne. Our souls cry holy to the Lord. My soul cries holy to the Lord. My soul cries holy before your throne. You are holy, Lord. You are holy, Lord. You are holy. You are holy and holy and holy. The Lord is holy. The Lord is holy.
All of you, in the mighty name of Jesus. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Praise the Lord. The Lord is good. The Lord is wonderful. Here we are connected again by the grace of the Lord. We thank God who has connected us once more. And this is the COVID-19 discussion on UBN TV, brought to you by the support of UBN partners. I thank the Lord that we are connected, and I believe that the Lord will guide us in what we are doing right now. I believe that the Spirit of God is with us because we acknowledge that on our own we cannot be able to do anything. We do everything through the enablement of the one who created us. And as I'm starting now, I want to say, Holy Spirit, lead us as we engage in this discussion. Here we are connected, as we are connected even during the day, and we're still talking about what is going on around us. We discuss matters concerning our lives. And I want to say to all of you, UBN viewers, be greeted wherever you are. And I thank you very much that you are connected. And to all of you on the UBN app, be greeted as well. It's wonderful that you are connected. And all of you on the website, all of you on YouTube, all of you on Facebook, be greeted right now in the mighty name of Jesus. Yes, we cannot stop talking about things that concern our lives. We cannot be passive. We have to be active participants in matters concerning our lives. I mean, here we are in South Africa. There is a lot that is going on right now. We see this pandemic, which is a global thing, a global problem that has wreaked so much havoc in our lives. And we all agree that this COVID-19 pandemic didn't just come with diseases, sicknesses, pains, and everything, and the losses, terrible losses that we have suffered, but it came accompanied with a whole lot of things, like what we are about to discuss right now. We are about to talk about the child mothers, children who are falling pregnant, being very young, bearing children, whereas they themselves are still children. This is something that concerns all of us. So all of us have to participate in bringing solutions. It's not a one man's problem, it's everybody's problem. It's something that is facing all of us. our children now are robbed of their childhood. We have seen on the news reports that are not so pleasing, that are so worrying, that leave us asking ourselves, what is happening with us? Where are we going as a nation? Where are we headed to? So it is very important that we get together and we talk about this. It's not a problem that we can say only government will solve it, that we can push to the side of the police and say the police will solve it, or to the teachers and say teachers will solve it, or parents will solve it, or churches will solve it. Everybody needs to be involved. And the way this is so important, tonight here, we are joined by powerful leaders in our communities, powerful leaders in our country, in our nation, because this topic calls for people who are serious about life. Our children are supposed to be learning at schools. They are supposed to be getting educated, getting empowered in order to succeed in the future. But that is not happening. And during the COVID-19 pandemic, which I say there, it has come with a lot of things. We have seen that the numbers of young people who are falling pregnant have increased. And not just increased, but tremendously so. And we are really worried about that. So I'm going to be talking tonight here with our guests. I've got Me Mtambo. She is Lieutenant Colonel Mtambo, and she is from SAPC Child Protection. And she is here with me. We are sitting together. I'm going to just ask her to greet you. Over to you. You can greet our viewers.
Thank you. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Mtambo. I'm working with the Child Protection Unit, Family Violence and Sexual Offenses. I'm at the Provincial Head Office of the Gauteng.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant Colonel. We appreciate your presence here on UBN. And you have heard, she is working directly with cases involving child abuse. And I believe that she is the right person who can be able to educate us on what they are doing with regard to these problems that we are facing, because I believe that if we are being told that 9-year-olds and 10-year-olds are falling pregnant, that involves rape, because those are still children. We cannot be talking about consensual sex there. We are talking rape. So we are going to be able to hear from Lieutenant Colonel what they are doing with regard to dealing with these cases of child rapes. And maybe tonight you will be left knowing where to go if you are witnessing problems that involve the rape of children. We are in the days where we are talking about 16 days of activism against violence against women and children. And there are many programs that are running right now. And we are wondering, seeing what is going on now, are we doing enough? That is the question that we have. And I also have on the panel Mrs. Shoki Shabalala, DDG, Department of Women, Youth, and Persons with disabilities. She will also be talking to us. We are going to hear what they are doing in their department in order to address or to deal with this problem that we are facing. And hello to you, Meshabalala.
Yourself, Marona, and to your viewers and those that are listening.
Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your presence on this program. And we have got Me Neliswa Tekiso, Acting Chief Director, Child Protection, National Department of Social Development. Good evening to you, Me Neliswa Tekiso.
Good evening, Pastor Makubu and the listeners and viewers.
Thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate your presence on the program. And we have got Mefeni Mutswane, Deputy Director, National Department of Health. We appreciate your presence here, Mefeni Mutswane, and good evening to you.
Good evening, Pastor Makuba, fellow panelists, and good evening to viewers and listeners at home. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you very much. And we also have Memandisa Mashiko. Memandisa is an activist for gender-based violence. Good evening to you, Memashiko.
Good evening, Pastor, and good evening to all the panelists. I'm actually founder of the Afro-Womanist Movement of South Africa and president of same entity. And to be quite honest, I'm not sure why I always get profiled as a GBV activist. I think my work goes way beyond that. But more especially, I want to place an emphasis on my discussion tonight with the other panelists on the disempowerment of women in general, especially Black women and children, economically, particularly, as well as politically, which is the the underlying root cause of majority of the problems of especially Black women, but more particularly poor Black women. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mandisa. And I'm sure we are going to hear a lot from your side. Okay, blessed viewer, you can be able to participate in this discussion. You are not excluded. We also want to hear from you. You can send your comments via WhatsApp on the number that is provided on the screen. You can be able to send us your comments even via Facebook. I'm going to be looking at all of them, those that are coming via WhatsApp and via Facebook. The number for you to participate in is on the screen there. So you just write your messages and then let us hear what you say about what you are hearing right now, because as I said when I started, this is not one man's problem and it needs the involvement of everyone. This afternoon, we are from Dorothy Nyembe Park. We were there, we were with young children. There was a program that we were involved in there. We were invited there to participate in. So we had children coming from different places. And young children, we were dealing with the thing of teenage pregnancies as well. Because this is something that is really, really infective. Everyone was calling it a pandemic, like say COVID-19 is the first one. Second one, gender-based violence. And now this one of teenage pregnancies is the third one. And it means that everybody is now aware that this is a problem that we cannot ignore. It is a problem that we need to deal with. It is a problem that we need to tackle. And you know that UBN is on different platforms. Yes, we have got about 24 hours broadcasting TV channel that is going all over the world. And many people are accessing there on their TVs. And then we have got these programs that we are running on Tshwane TV on a daily basis, 2 whole hours that we have every day, even on Khao TV during the weekend, Saturday and Sunday morning. We have got an hour on each day, and also an hour on 1KZN 8:30 p.m. on Sundays, and also on Soweto TV during the day. We have got our program there. So this is something that I vowed that this we are going to put on all platforms, because this cannot be ignored. This is very, very important. Everybody has to start engaging with this problem. If we are to win this battle, obviously all of us have to be involved. So I'm going to ask our guests to just tell us what they are doing in order to address this problem that we are facing. What is it that what are the programs that they are involved in? What is working? What is not working? Where did we go wrong? Where did we go wrong? Why are we having these kind of problems in our country, where we are seeing young ones who are children themselves, who are supposed to be mothering children, and with their future being destroyed? What is happening? And what is it that different departments or different organizations are doing in order to address this problem? And what is it that we need to do more in order to uproot this problem that we have? The people that I was with this afternoon, they call it a sketch. And when I look at it, I think that description fits very well. And now I'm going to hand over to our guests. I'm gonna start with you. I hear that we have got a problem with those who are on Zoom right now. So are you restarting? Lieutenant Colonel Mtambo here to hear what you do at your place of work in order to help with this problem of children who are having children, which we all know that for a child to be pregnant, it means that child is raped. Just educate our viewers with regard to these issues.
Thank you, Pastor Mama Makuba. You know, within the police service, we are having the units, the different units that are investigating the cases. But with the unit that I'm in, we are specializing in all the sexual offenses case. That is what we are calling it, because it is just an umbrella. We call it as the sexual offenses, the family violence, and the child protection. Then, so say, all these cases, even the adults, but as today we are looking at the teenage, that is the children, because according to our law, we've got different laws that the Constitution is saying that a child is a person who is 18 years and down. Yes. And then if that person is engaging in any activities of sexuality, then that person, according to the Constitution, there is an offense that is being committed there. Then we come to what we call today, it's a statutory rape. But it seems that the statutory rape has now fallen within the cracks of what is happening around, because the statutory rape, that is where the children are getting in. Because those people, when they are engaging in sexual activities, the age gap, it must be 2 years. Let me say a 16 and a 17 years. Then we can call it is a statutory rape. So that statutory rape, if it has been committed and reported, the case is taken to the Director of the Public of Prosecutions to say that is the one who must decide to say that, must I prosecute? Must I send them somewhere to get help? Because they have started to engage in activities that is not yet good for them. But recently we have seen a rise of those children that are engaging with where this gap of the ages that baby is called into statutory rape. It is far wide now, of which it is a straight rape when we call it to that now. Yes. With us, we only receive the cases that are reported to us. Yes, we have seen the pandemics. Okay, that is happening, but the thing is, not all those cases that they got away to the police station. Yes, we've got few, but most of them, they don't get into the police station because of the different reasons from the parents, from the people that are supposed to be victims. Because others, they will say, look, this person is my boyfriend. We had incidents where the parents are trying to be parent to their kids. They will come out and open the cases to say that this is wrong. But when you talk to the child, because now the child is being manipulated by an adult to say that, look, I'll give you this and that you. So now the child will say, no, this person, is my boyfriend. So I'm not going to entertain you, mother, because you've got whatever. But now it becomes a problem because there now, the procedures that are supposed to be placed in this thing to go ahead with the process, we cannot do it because we will need a statement from that child. If that child said, this person didn't rape me, what are we taking to court? We don't have a case there because the child is saying, although we still have to take it to court because an adult person has committed, now it becomes a part of the court to say, court, take a decision here. This is the child in terms of the law, but now this has happened. You will find out we've got victims that are also not supporting the investigations. Because really, when things now are reported at the police station, it's because things bad happen. So, as I'm saying, yes, some they do reach us, some they don't. Some you'll find that now the child is sick because the child was pregnant. Maybe they tried to do abortion behind the doors. Then now it will come to say, hey, I was pregnant. Now this has happened. Maybe I'm sick now. Then the parents will come and report. So we've got really a problem here when coming especially to the teenage girls, because our teenage girls are being manipulated a lot by money, by adult people, by all these fancy things that are around us. So we'll find out they'll fall for them. I just want to quote one thing that people maybe they won't know. The blessers, who are blessing? The blessers are blessing who? Then what is regulating the blessers to say that, okay, you are a blesser, you cannot bless a child, or you can bless this age of a child. And when that has happened, then the child now is being blessed. Automatically, it will end to where they are engaging in sexual activities. In some instances, the child is getting pregnant. So it is a problem. But our committee there, they must know that they can open the cases. Some, they don't open the cases, but we got also the hotlines, the hotline reporting system. You see the thing happening next door. As Pastor Makuba has also stated that a child of 8 years or 9 years now is getting pregnant. Because with today's growing of the children, it's really quite different because our children now, they start menstruation very early stage. So automatically, if that child can get being raped or being engaged in sexual activities, anything can happen there. Besides that, also they get sick. It is way also that they get sick. So it is really a problem. So calling to the community to say that really we need to work together. We really have to work together. We must report and report and report. Then we come together.
Maybe let me ask you, Lieutenant Colonel, at your workplace, we are reading the things that, okay, teenagers are falling pregnant. And when you start hearing about 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, you really get worried. Like what is there on the screen, more than 600 girls aged 9 and 10 gave birth in 2020. That is according to State South Africa. You get worried, very worried when you see that. So I wanted to ask you, these cases of this kind of children of this age group, are they reaching your offices?
They do, because like for instance, it is now reported. Now we are aware of them, especially when it gets to the hospital. We are working together with the hospital to say that if they see such a thing, even if it's not reported by the parent or whoever is a guardian to the child, but they will report to us to say that this has happened. So we'll take it from there. It's not going to just to be neglected because nobody has reported it. We do get those cases through the work, the relationship that we are having with the hospital to say that such things, because also I think the Department of Health, the nurses, they've got the duty to report when they see such things.
Yeah, I wanted to come to that is it not as per the law that those people who are working with children, like your teachers, your nurses, when they become aware of such things, they have to report them? Are we not bound, if we are working in those departments, to report such things?
It is a duty bound of all the citizens of South Africa to say that once you see such a thing, especially where the child is involved, you need to report to the police station. Even if you are not a teacher or a nurse, but if you can see that this is a thing that is happening with this child, you can report. As a neighbor, as a person whom you heard about it, some because they even get it to say that my child told me this. So we need to come out and report so that we can assist that child, because at the end of the day, it's the life of that child that is being destroyed by an adult person or by whoever, just to satisfy his needs. So it is the duty bound for all the South Africans to come out and report.
Okay. You have heard, you who are connected there, it is the duty of every citizen of the country to report these kind of things. And I know that in somebody's mind, it will be like, hey, but you police guys, we no longer trust you. This afternoon, there was somebody who was relating a case that happened in Soshanguve, that there is this guy who raped 13 children, something that is doing the rounds now. And this guy raped these 13 children. When they come from school, he would wait for them, rape them one after another, and some repeatedly so. But it is said that the uncle is a policeman, and they took this guy and was trying to hide this guy so that he doesn't face any consequences of his behavior. So there is that thing of also lack of trust, maybe, that is interfering with the reporting of these cases these days.
If that is the case, like in this case you are referring to, because this is a policeman who is supposed to be protecting these children, but this thing is happening like this. And if you look behind that, this policeman is luring this child to come to this person to say that I'll give you 10 rand. Because in most of the incidents, you'll find that these victims are coming from the very disadvantaged communities. where they will accept anything for the sake of, I'll get a bread today or I'll get a pocket money tomorrow.
Poverty is a problem.
Poverty is a problem. Yes. So they will do. But now, as I stated, that these people are being manipulated by an adult. That police officer knows very well that I am a citizen and I'm working with the law. I need to protect this. But it cannot just be left like that. People must come and report. Even if they don't trust the nearest police station, you've got a lot of avenues where they can come and report these incidents.
Yes, this is the information that we want to take to the viewers out there so that they know the avenues that are available for them to can be able to report this, to can be able to deal with this. Because here we are saying that it is your responsibility. It is your responsibility as a citizen to report things like this, because as you see, there is moral decay in our country, in our nation, and it's getting worse every day. And our children are sort of bearing the negative consequences of what is happening right now. And if we don't act, all of us will be left with no children. And anyway, we'll be left with no country at all. Nothing to call a country.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. We'll come back to you. Let me pass and go to another guest so that we can hear how they are tackling this problem that we have. Can I come to you, Mefeni Mutswane? Tell us what you are doing in your department with this problem. How are you tackling these issues? What are you seeing? What is it that needs to be done from now onwards so that we can win against this enemy that we are facing today?
Thank you once more, Pastor Makuba. So I'm within the National Department of Health. I am coordinating and managing the Integrated School Health Program. So this is a program where jointly with the Department of Basic Education and Social Development, we plan to visit, schools whereby we deliver school-based interventions. Learners are then screened for barriers to teaching and learning. However, with this policy or these interventions, there was a shortcoming wherein we do not offer sexual and reproductive health services on site. If a learner requests such, they will then be referred to the healthcare facility. So that is the one challenge. However, having said that, all these services that are taken to schools are voluntary services, and they also depend on the parents or caregivers giving consent forms. So at the beginning of the year, each school will then issue out the consent forms for parents and caregivers to agree for the young ones to access these health services that are brought in schools. So very often we're having challenges of consent forms whereby parents are not signing consent forms, and according to the law, such services cannot be given to a learner if the parent has not agreed. However, also through the Children's Act, we know that any child who is 12 years and above, they can actually give their own assent or agree to access these services. But then we still have, challenges where parents will then take nurses to task to say, I have not agreed for my child to access those services. So those are the challenges that we are having while we are trying to bring, health interventions to schools. And with regard to particularly the learner pregnancies. So what we usually say is that, like you have correctly said, Pastor Makubo, in your introduction, that this is a societal problem. It's not a problem for a specific a department or organization, but jointly we can actually join forces and hence and do more. So with the other government departments, we then conduct workshops, to capacitate the healthcare workers to also report any cases of abuse when they come into contact with a child who presents in the healthcare facility or the child who are seen in schools. And with regards to young, the Department of Health wants these children who are aged 10 to 14 years, 15 to 19 years, deliver in health facilities. Is according to our mandate and scope. We collect this data, we then share with the relevant stakeholders and other government departments for them to take action jointly. So I can pause here for now. Thank you.
Okay, Memutwane, you are talking about health services that you are taking to the schools. And maybe just to make viewers to understand exactly what you are doing and if you are also dealing directly with teenagers who are pregnant at schools.
Okay, thank you. So the health services that are taken to schools is the nurses will go to schools and they will screen learners who are in grade R, who are in grade 1, 4, 8, and 10 respectively. So when we talk barriers to teaching and learning, these learners are screened for hearing problems, problems with vision, if they've got any psychosocial problems, and if such are picked up, they are then referred to the social workers. But then the ones that they are attended to immediately is like when a learner cannot see, then they are then referred to the optometrist for them to get the spectacles. If they can't hear or they have hearing problems, they are referred relevantly to such. Unfortunately, like I indicated before, sexual and reproductive health services, that is contraceptive services, are not offered in schools because that is the limitation of the policy. It was only in 2019 where, together with the Department of Basic Education, a standard operating procedure was then developed for these services to be taken to schools. So that there was a plan then to roll out these services either within the school vicinity or just outside the school yard. And that can also be done by other partners or stakeholders who are offering health services. So unfortunately, then in 2020, that's when we started having COVID and all these plans were disturbed. So for now, through the integrated school health program, your contraceptive services are not offered in schools. However, we are experiencing or dealing with young people who are falling pregnant, and they are then dealt with according to the policy of the basic education. And unfortunately, we don't have a representative, in the panel this evening. But then once a learner is then pregnant, they are referred to health facilities where they can start with antenatal care or antenatal care services, or they are counseled if they want to, keep the pregnancy, then they will be encouraged to undergo the antenatal care services. If they don't want to continue with the pregnancy, they will then be offered the choice on termination of pregnancy, where in dedicated tribes, they will then be cancelled, and then such a pregnancy is terminated.
Thank you, Ma'am.
Thank you, Ma'am.
When we begin to talk about 10-year-olds and 9-year-olds, even the mention of the word contraception makes your blood to just move in another way. Because really, we're talking about babies. Can you really go talk to your baby about contraception at the age of 10? It's a problem, a serious one. Okay, let me go to Ms. Shabalala, Department of Women, Youth, and Persons with Disabilities. Let us hear from you. What is happening in your department? How are you experiencing this, and how are you dealing with this problem that is facing us? Over to you, Ms. Shabalala.
Thank you so much. I already greeted you all together with the panel members. What I need to indicate is that this department is not an implementing department. Our mandate is that of regulating the socioeconomic rights of women, youth, and persons with disabilities, as well as the whole issue around the empowerment of women, youth, and persons with disabilities. But what we then did as a government and led by this department is that we do have a country policy in the form of a national strategic plan on gender-based violence and femicide. That plan, we have since developed a program of action that seeks to respond to the issues that relates to teenage pregnancy. And this integrated program of action is actually aligned to the national strategic plan. So for us, what is important is to make sure that with every pillar of the national strategic plan, departments take responsibility and are held accountable in terms of formulating the right policies, which is the pillar 1 on accountability. Pillar 2 talks to prevention of that strategy, that we then intervene and upscale our prevention programs as government. As we speak, the government came up with a medium-term strategic framework, and the teenage pregnancy matter is high on the agenda, and it has therefore been assigned to the Department of Health as the lead department. They are the ones that will be monitoring this program of action that gets implemented by all stakeholders. But the beauty about this national strategic plan is that it's a plan that has been crafted by both government and civil society. So in this instance, we are jointly owning this plan and we are jointly implementing this plan, which then brings me to my next comment that I want to make. Earlier on, you asked a question: what do we do with children who have children? But I think we should pose this question differently and say, what do we do with men who violate the rights of children? Let's remove the blame from the children and put it squarely where it belongs. Let's call it what it is. Men are violating the rights of children. Men are sexually abusing the girl children. They prey on these children, and they should be named and shamed to be perverts, because that's what they are. There's no man in their right frame of mind would go and rape a child who is 10-year-old and all of that. So I want to say, the way we craft our messages, whether it's media or government, let's begin to apportion blame where it belongs. We have to stop saying 3,000 girls or X number of girls fell pregnant. We need to say 3,000 men or whatever X number of men impregnated so many girls, so that we take it and put it squarely where it belongs, because these girls, they do not rape themselves. That's the reality. But someone is preying on these children. We also acknowledge the fact that, yes, COVID-19 had an impact on this. The COVID-19 alert levels, those restrictions, had good intentions. Remember, they were meant to curb the spread of the pandemic. But unfortunately, it also had unintended consequences because the schools had to shut down. Some of the parents were still at work. The children were left unattended. Instead of society turning around and saying, what do we do in promoting and protecting the rights of the children, in making sure that children are safe and are protected from any form of abuse, including sexual abuse? We have men who then see an opportunity and prey on these children. That should be condemned. That behavior is abnormal and it is unacceptable. And we need good men to stand up and speak as part of our prevention program. The third pillar of this National Strategic Plan, it's about access to criminal justice. Now, once a child has laid a charge or the parent decided to come to the fore and reported the matter, our duty as government is to make sure that we are responsive. Our services are supposed to be victim-centric and not blame the child or even asking questions at the end of the day as to why did it happen and where were you and why were you there at night and all of that. In summary, the next one, which would be pillar number 4, which is now access to services that we are rendering to make sure that the child is healed or is supported or is counseled. That is a service offered by either the social workers or any other person that can counsel. I want to take you back to pillar 2, Mamrut. Pastor, at what point will these matters be matters of the pulpit? This is a matter that relates to GBV, gender-based violence. Let's take these matters to the pulpit. If we expect parents to give consent for children to be educated on these matters, when will the church even commence to engage on these matters at the level of Sunday school, when it is age appropriate and also some are saying culturally appropriate? At what point are we going to do that? So that we leave the National Strategic Plan, we breathe the National Strategic Plan that talks about harness all to come on board and make sure that everybody takes their part. Like an onion ring, which starts with that small round in the middle, it begins with you. Everyone must take charge. Every sector, we spare no one from implementing the National Strategic Plan. It is multi-sectoral. It requires everyone to do their part. And I appreciate what you have done today, because that's the first step in challenging even the faith-based organizations to say, come on board, those of you that have not yet thought of doing so. Let us collectively pull together. Let us collectively tackle this case, because at the end of the day, these are not just numbers, but they relate to human life. These young girls are part of the social fabric that ought to be nurtured and mentored. Instead, they become victims, and at the later stage, they become victims of any form of poverty that you can think of, unemployment, and any form of abuse, because they will either become dropouts or they get married early and they depend on these people. As I conclude, I want to indicate that we have taken bold steps. We have written to the premiers and the MECs of the 9 provinces. We have requested to receive data for all these children that have been recorded as such. We will be interviewing them in a multi-sectoral nature with police, SAPS, but the unit that is specializing on FCS matters, with social workers and all. We want to get to the bottom of this. Who actually impregnated this girl child? Is it the father? Is it the stepfather? Is it a neighbor? Is it just a boyfriend? We want to set an example so that we begin to follow through and we charge these people and we bring the perpetrators to book. This is one way that will end this case. Otherwise, let's put the blame to men and let men come on board and be our partners. I would like to pause there for now and allow my other colleagues to come in.
Thank you very much, Mesha Valala. That gives so much hope when we start talking about accountability, where people are going to be called to account for their actions. And
Me?
oh, okay. Sorry, there is technology, Mesha Valala. I'm talking here and you cannot hear me because I had muted myself. I was saying that what you were saying gives hope in a way. Because when we start talking about accountability, that is where we're going to start solving this problem. Because people do whatever that they want to do when they know that there are no consequences. So you have heard there, you viewer, that Meshokis Shabalala says that they have called for data. They don't just want to look at people as numbers, statistics. They want the victims, because we're talking about people here. We're talking about somebody's child. So they want the victims so that they can have interviews with them and find out who is behind this. So she's talking accountability here. People having to face the consequences of their behaviors, because we have got people who are psychopaths, and if there are no consequences, they will continue to hurt people. These are people that you cannot really rehabilitate in any way except for them to face the consequences of their behaviors. You're not just going to sit and talk to them and then they change. So that is what Meshabalala said. And if that happens, all of us will be appreciative. And I will repeat what she was saying. This is something that everybody needs to be involved in. These are matters that we need to discuss, because the people of the church as well, let me put it this way, as she mentioned the pulpit, we are also supposed to be talking about this, because where else will you find people who are going to be straightforward, be the voice of the voiceless, and talk about injustice, as we are people who worship a God of justice? We are supposed to stand for the truth, and we are supposed to call out what is wrong and call it wrong. And of course, people will say, even pastors are raping children these days. Those are supposed to be named, and they are supposed to be reported, as she said, name and shame. Because if we cover these things, then we lose the battle. So let me move on and go to Me Kekiso and hear what they are doing. She is the Acting Chief Director, Child Protection, National Department of Social Development. Let us hear from you, Mekekiso.
Pastor Mukuba, thank you for this invitation. I think it came really at the right time, as you indicated that we are, looking at the 16 days of activism.
We have sort of lost her there. Okay, if the connection is not very good, we can do without the video and just go on audio. That is the problem of the Zoom. Okay, Mekekiso, we have lost you there. We cannot hear you. Okay, we have lost her. We will go to Memashiko and Memashiko. Let me, yes, you can come in as we have lost the other guest.
It's extremely disappointing to listen to civil servants and public service employees, speak in such a defeated tone about an issue that affects them first and foremost as females. Secondly, it's also extremely disappointing that when we talk about the impact of the socio-economic environment of South Africa, which is largely governed by inequality, racial inequality, as I don't know if someone.
Okay, can we deal with the issue of me Kekiso there? Can we deal with that? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You can go ahead, Mema Shiko.
No, thank you very much. I'd just like to recommend that one of your administrators manages the mute buttons on the back side of the system. It's possible that you can mute all of us until it's time for us to speak. But the point I was making earlier was that it's extremely disappointing that with the terrible conditions of specifically economic inequality, which leads to the social inequalities, right? Not the other way around. We always call women in to have these discussions. It's not women that have power economically, least of all Black women, but even white women, Indian women, and colored women, of course, who are always enjoying the pains of all the torture that society has to offer. We are right next to colored women in South Africa when it comes to the detrimental effects of the socio-economic environment of the South African economy and social construct. But it's always women that get called to these discussions. I'm very despondent and really demoralized by the fact that we don't call men to these conversations. I'm not sure why. The economy puts Black women in particular, African women in particular, on the back foot by giving Black women the lowest wages possible. The economy puts Black women, in most cases, at a huge disadvantage as a gender and as a race group and as a community at large when it comes to job opportunities and rather career progression opportunities. When a woman has to progress from one situation to another in a workplace or professional environment or business environment, she's always, not always, it's legally wrong to say always, but majority of the time, there are sexual advances that are made to women in order for them to assume positions of higher authority or higher income. And what is sad about that situation is that many women cooperate with that sexual exploitation of their professional rights and essentially really their human rights and rights to their bodies that need to be separated from a meritocratic environment. Merit is not used when it comes to the economic empowerment of women. If you look at things such as the BEE environment in South Africa, it's packed with men. If you look at any so-called successful BEE deal that is lauded by the private sector and government alike, because obviously there's a collusion between the private sector and government, you will find that such BEE deals are fraught with men only. If you look at any environment, especially in government, where nepotism and of course sexual harassment is very, very rife, and of course cadre deployment by the misgoverning African National Congress Party, if you look at that environment, sexual harassment and sexual favors in exchange for jobs is very rife. Again, women cooperate with those kinds of situations by not fighting back. Let me come back to the point of the gender violence and also the COVID, which you have introduced earlier on when you introduced the purpose of the program today, the gender violence, the COVID situation, as well as the increase of pregnancies, particularly the most disgusting, which is pregnancies that are found amongst children. Now, there's a lot that goes into this whole thing at different points of the conversation, but individually in these three different topics. But what underlies these three topics as a whole, as far as it concerns us as women and Black women in particular? It's the economy. It's economic repression. There is systemic economic repression in South Africa against particularly Black women, you'll find that majority of the Black women workforce is actually located in what is generally known as blue-collar worker strata. You will find that majority of the Black workforce, Black female workforce, in the blue-collar strata, as it is often referred to, actually has women earning less than 4,000 Rand a month, essentially classifying them as underemployed. What does that imply? That implies social conditions for a woman who earns that much money. If you've got half of your workforce in South Africa earning that little, and those are the 100% Black or African in the workforce, what does it mean for their children? What does it mean for the communities where they come from? What does it mean primarily for the demographic that we are discussing, women in general, whether they are little children, teenagers in their 20s, 30s, etc.? It simply means that the breadwinner and the one person who is mostly responsible for majority households in South Africa, it was found in a recent study that 70% of the households in Black townships, in African townships in particular, I'm excluding the colored people and the Indian people in this instance, 70% of the households do not have a man living in them who has fathered the children or is a stepfather or some other kind of father figure or role model in those households. Therefore, the point I'm making is that the economic disparities immediately impact on the social disparities, because the breadwinners, the people who are responsible for the households, are underpaid. They cannot even survive on the wages that they earn. Secondly, they are sexually harassed and sexually objectified by society at large, especially in the workplace and in public spaces, in taxis, in trains, in buses, etc. And then thirdly, those caregivers and breadwinners who are female, who are essentially under-resourced economically, find themselves in an insecure situation. Their children are insecure because they have to wake up at 4 in the morning to be at work at 8 because there's no transport, as something that has been exacerbated by the endless bus strikes, taxi strikes, and all sorts of violence, including the recent looting. Now, you ask yourself then a simple question. What are you expecting from the crime stats? If you put together a corrupt, inept government that is full of senior managers, exemplified by some of the colleagues that we are talking with today, who basically pass the buck. They tell you, when we find a 9-year-old child in a Department of Health situation, we basically call the police. They don't even do that, by the way. We can give you countless examples that that is not true. They will tell you that in school, when we find children who are of special circumstances and are confronted by, violence and abuse and molestation, and excessive, harsh conditions of even hunger in the areas where they come from, what do? A teacher will tell you, no, I call a social worker. They are all passing the buck. Right now, we are sitting with a terrible situation where several pastors have been accused of rape, and I've started attending the case against this man called Zondo, who is alleged to have raped not only a member of his own family, but members of his church. And we are sitting with 10 victims in the Pretoria High Court. The only constructive thing I can say about that case is that at least it was given to a judge that we know through experience takes no nonsense from molesters and rapists. And so we can rest easy on that front. But we went to court almost every day in the last week of the court case. None of the government officials were there. Not from social development, not from so-called women, children, and whatever they call themselves. The department that says that they have no implementing teeth. They've just said it now. And then we as women believe that we are safe under the current government, or that we are safe under the current society that we live in. Here's the hard truth to all of this. All the people that are in authority figures in South Africa, whether you go to a commercial bank, you go to a government department, you go to a multinational organization that has offices in South Africa, you go to a multinational non-governmental organization, all of them, you go to churches, are led and headed up by men. What is the Afro-Womanist movement of South Africa saying? We are saying it's time that a feminist agenda is firmly set, both in the economic landscape as well as the political landscape. Why? The social spaces where we suffer as women, where we get raped, where we are left hungry, where we are molested by our own neighbors and our uncles and our fathers and our pastors, all these social spaces where we feel the pain is not where the problem originates. The problem originates in the political power basis and also in the economic power basis combined, put together. Now, those are the two areas where women specifically do not want to be engaged in. Women are afraid of power. And because we are afraid of power, we tend to stay away from power bases where we can actually solidly, convincingly only start to make a change to our lives conclusively. We believe as women, especially Black women, especially African Black women, we have a tendency to believe that men are going to liberate us from trauma and torture and poverty. But do you know what the reality is? The reality is that it's men, whether they are white or Black, but it is men who essentially have put us in a position of subordination, in a position of being dehumanized, and in a position of being economically and politically disempowered to an extent that we ourselves as women have now disempowered each other. As a parting shot on my opening remarks, I want to stress something about the disingenuous engagement of the so-called South African government that is so anti-people and is so anti-Black women in particular. That department was engaged particularly not so long ago by a group or various groupings of gender-based violence activists and gender activists, you know, in general, even if they are in the economic spaces like some of us, right? And they made a promise to do certain things. They were given a memorandum to commit to. And the so-called president of the country committed to this. But can I tell you to date that the very same Department of Women, Children, people living with disabilities, etc., has not done anything to advance significantly majority of those in that memorandum of agreement. I'll tell you one most significant issue, which the lady from that department needs to respond to. The publication of the sex offenders register, that has not been agreed to. That has not been facilitated by government. The automated registration, to protect, for protection orders hasn't been activated. And let me tell you an even worse one. We are supposed to have DNA testing kits at police stations, social development offices, Department of Health facilities such as clinics and hospitals, where the victims of molestation, especially children, and rape victims usually go to as their first point of call. Those DNA kits are not available. They will tell you a stupid story about, oh no, the DNA kits are given to so and so and so and so and so and so. But the reality is that it's not practical. When you have been raped, your first point of call is either a social worker, a police officer, or a clinic or a hospital. Why are the DNA kits not made available there? The rest of the stuff that was said by the SAPS, I really cannot entertain, because we all know it's a fact of life. I can walk into any police station right now, immediately after this interview, and report a rape, even if I do it fictitiously so as to test the system. Do you know who's going to give me the most attitude? It's going to be a female police officer. And do you know how badly I'm going to be treated? I'm going to be told that I must explain the entire ordeal right in front of everyone and be subjected to secondary and tertiary rape and abuse circumstances. I want to leave my points at that for now.
Wow. Memashik. Yeah. The truth hurts, it cuts deep, but it has to be spoken. She's not really sparing any feelings here. She's just going directly to the problem, which is what we want in order for us to can solve these problems. And it's very disturbing, of course, that now women and children feel so unsafe in their own country. They feel like springboks in a jungle where you are like you are vulnerable, you can be preyed on at any time. And that is the sad, sad truth. That is what young children are living with today when they go to school. They are not sure if they're going to go to school and come back still safe. And even those at varsity level, they are not sure if they are going to finish their studies without being raped. And mothers as well are living during terrible times where even when your child leaves in the morning, you're not sure if they are still going to come back the same. And you yourself as a mother don't even feel safe even at your workplace. Is this the kind of society that we would want to live in? You have heard what Mema Shiko said. She says that she feels that people who are in position of power are not really giving much hope. They are sort of sounding so defeated. It's like they are passing the buck. And on the one of why are we only having women, this afternoon when we were dealing with young girls where I was invited, I asked that question. I also spoke about it, that we should be having both male and females in our dialogues, not just females, because it will now look like the problem is with women, the problem is with girls. And there it is. Let us try to go back to our previous speaker who got disconnected while we were still talking, because sometimes these Zoom connections give us problems. Okay, Mekekiso.
Pastor, I hope now I'm audible enough. I've just switched on from the computer into my phone. Am I audible?
Yes.
Thank you, Pastor. I want to share what the Department of Social Development is doing in relation to prevention of teenage pregnancy. You know, as we view this also in light of child abuse, neglect, and exploitation. As the department responsible for care and protection of children, we are saying that prevention and early intervention is one of the key pillars, as Meshoki has indicated in her presentation when she was talking about the NSP. When I talk about the prevention and early intervention, that's where we basically empower our communities through education and awareness. But at the same time, we've got a campaign that we call, 365 Days Child Protection Activity, which actually is intended to mobilize communities. And when I say communities, I'm speaking about the traditional as well as the religious leaders. As part of this campaign, we are working together with NGOs and supported by UNICEF. To be specific, with UNICEF support, we even have training specifically for the religious leaders so that we are able to facilitate the process of prevention, identification, and reporting of these cases should they happen. Again, when we speak about the prevention as the department, we've dialogue that we facilitate specifically for issues of sexual and reproductive health. We've got what we call as Abasha dialogues. We've got a program that we call RISIHA, which is community-based prevention and early intervention, which has got a specific module on sexuality, where we basically empower young men and girls so that they are able to make right choices in life. And these are actually happening in the various communities, including drop-in centers, where most vulnerable children go for, their school homework, any kind of assistance that they need, because we understand that we've got vulnerable communities with children because sometimes are even absent. Therefore, put that protective measure, such as drop centers in our communities. Also to ensure that we build the capacity of our young girls and boys to be able to make right choices in life. We've got a program that we call YOLO, meaning that you only live once. The purpose of YOLO program is, again, to help and build the resilience among people, boys and girls, to be able to withstand the pressures that lead them to take risks. Because as somebody was indicating, some of teenage pregnancy, issue of experiment, some children wanting to please partners, some children engaging in intergenerational, including transactional relationships, where we find the sugar daddies. Now we find that that is not enough. We therefore need to implement a program that the department came up with, which we call Men Championing Change. Another program is also Boys Championing Change, because we say that through actually encourage boys and men to be positive role models within their families as well as within, the community. Because should we not also bring the boy, only focus on the girl child, the empowered girl child, victim of this boy child who is disempowered, whom unfortunately, because of absent fathers, who have that emotional turmoil, built up emotions, and being angry, going out there and abusing your else. Another thing that we have also picked up is the trying to through these preventive programs, education and awareness. We also picked up that, some of these children who are under 16 years of age, they do engage in these sexual activities. However, they lack understanding that as much as they want to engage in the sexual activities, the issues of the age difference, which the Lieutenant Colonel has spoken about, therefore we need to intensify that education to say that those children that are at age 16 years who still want to end, it's important that they understand that there are risks in terms of this experimentation. So our life skills program, which also, also spoke about the integrated school health program, which now with this stage of pregnancy, we're saying that as the three departments, we need to intensify this education of through integrated school health program. Pastor, I need to indicate that as the department, we've got the National Sexual Reproductive Health and Rights Work Strategy, which has got 5 key priorities. One of the things that we have achieved also is the of the problem by the community, because if we want to ensure safety of the child, it starts within the family, and we also have to ensure that we build the parental capacity. The family needs to be strengthened. That's why we've got our family preservation program as the department, also have our programs, which we feel that we are not really making much mark in our communities. Therefore, we need to intensify, those interventions. At community level, we cannot alone win this fight if we are not working to increase education is one of the key priorities in terms of the strategy of adolescent sexual reproductive and rights. We also need to find, innovative ways and approaches where we can really disseminate information on sexual and reproductive rights. I cannot overemphasize the importance of education, especially for our boys and girls. Also strengthen the service delivery and support on very health concern areas, where we also have to ensure that we create effective community support networks for adults in our communities. And as I indicated, the importance of these social behavioral changes for us to be able to deal with the drivers of teenage pregnancy. I think I will pause there because a number of areas has been touched by the speakers within this panel. Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you so much, Mr. The things that you are mentioning here are very, very interesting. You're talking about programs that sound very, very interesting. Ezabasha Dialogue, YOLO, they really sound very, very interesting. But I'm having viewers here who are writing things like this, that we agree that programs are good, but it's like they're not much effective. Hence, we are still having these high numbers. We have take a young girl child to school program, but you are not taking boys to those programs. And this writer says you should also bring back the Soul City programs and the Love Life programs to the locations. And another one is Mleboheng says programs are there in government departments, but they are not implemented because officials are not passionate about their jobs. There is no proper monitoring and evaluation, and there is no accountability. Because I can hear the programs that you are talking about. I also heard you clearly, and got interested. It caught my attention that, oh, there are these things that are happening, but maybe the question is, how far are they reaching? Do people really know about these programs? Are they really being driven with passion, as the viewers are expressing here in what they are writing?
I'm not sure whether you're giving me a platform.
Yes, yes. Sorry, I didn't say it right.
Thank you, Pastor. I want to indicate that we are partnering with NGOs in running these programs, especially the YOLO that I spoke about, which is You Only Live Once, the TOMI program, which also I spoke about, targeting the age group of 10 to 14, YOLO targeting the age group of 15 and 19 years of age. Just not long time ago, the Deputy Minister of Social Development engaged children across the country through CHOMI program. It was a virtual platform. And then we are also continuing to go to various provinces. I think we need to work closely with our counselors, community development workers within the wards as well, to make sure that where we are not reaching, the child ambassador that we have within the respective provinces and districts, they also, continue to spread this message so that we can ensure that we reach even all communities. Because we also understand that as much as we are having these programs, there are certain areas where we are reaching, which I'm really calling upon partnership, as I indicate that the department alone cannot really impact this through the 365 days campaign. It says we have to work together to really curb the scourge of violence against children, prevent this child abuse, prevent the neglect, prevent the exploitation of children, especially the girl child. Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you, May.
Okay, I'll come to you now. I just wanted to find out about this one of monitoring and evaluation, because programs have to be evaluated to see if they are effective. Remember that we are sitting with this high number, these statistics that is so concerning. It's a source of concern. That is why viewers are expressing themselves to say that, are we really evaluating? Is there accountability? And I understand that some of the viewers are saying this because, remember, there is this belief that there are programs in government, but these programs are there only to perpetuate corruption, not really to help the citizens of South Africa. So maybe you can address that one, Me Tekiso. Thank you.
That. In terms of monitoring and evaluation, we also identified that even as we as government, we were actually doing the diagnostic review on the state response in terms of addressing violence against women and children. We identified that area of evaluation, monitoring and evaluation, including reliable data. That's why in this POA that Meshoki spoke about, we have prioritized and department as well. We have indicated that we need to go back and evaluate the impact of our programs in these communities, because we cannot continue to have the scourge of teenage pregnancy if programs are effective. So we are giving attention to that because we acknowledge that there is a gap. And it was also confirmed by the diagnostic review on state's response.
Thank you very much. Thank you. There you hear yourself, blessed viewer. You hear for yourself, this is what is going on. We do have government officials here with us. We want to hear from them. What is it that our government is doing in order to help the citizens to overcome the problems that we are facing right now of child pregnancies, which are coming or emanating from this thing of men who are preying on young girls? And we are having poverty in our land, which is also making children to be vulnerable, because researches that are done do indicate that most of the children who are falling pregnant are those children who are coming from disadvantaged background. And as a result, we see poverty being perpetuated in families because such a child will not be able to receive education and be able to prosper in their future. So they come from a poor background, they end up being poor, they give birth to babies at an early age, and some of them even drop out from school. This is very, very sad. It is very, very painful. So we have got the public servants here. You are there listening. Don't just listen, also participate by sending your comments. And I'm also going to open the lines for few participants so that you can ask the questions that you have. And I know that Memandisa Mashiko wants to say something before we can continue. I'm going to give her the platform now. Over to you, Memashiko.
Pastor, I wanted to find out from one of the females who are with us from government. Do they know a woman by the name of Figile Nchangase, who is late, who was a mining, and not anti-mining, but pro-environmental protection activist from an area in the north of KwaZulu-Natal, who was mowed down, gunned down by faceless men who literally walked into her house with AK-47s and shot her. I'm on record, demanding for the police to speedily handle her case and bring the murderers to book. She was killed in front of her 11-year-old son, all in protection of the rights of, profit-driven mining companies to mine. And of course, there was an allegation that there may be some involvement from traditional authorities, local, the local council, that some people had a business interest, which we all know mostly it's men. I'm just curious as to whether, especially the person representative from the Department of Women and Children, whether they know about this case, whether they know that this case has been frustrated forever and a day, whether they know that the perpetrators have never been brought to book, whether they know that there was never even a competent investigation. And the reason I'm asking this, Pastor, I'm not trying to show them up, because as a womanist and a feminist, I believe in first affirming women and then working together with women for all of us to start breaking down these dysfunctional abnormalities. Where are women like themselves in government when women are being gunned down? Or are they going to refer us back to red tapes? We are here to discuss solutions and things that we need to start seeing happen, not just in government, but in our own private spaces, as well as in civil society. And of course, bringing in business where all the deep pockets are that can help us where we need money to make certain things happen. But I'm afraid that, to me, all the representatives of government and the females in government are sounding like patriarchal queens and patriarchal princesses who really just come to these spaces to patronize all of us about this program and that program. But in reality, where their interventions and their power and authority in terms of their positionality is required to make a difference, it's not there. So I'm really very curious to know whether they've even heard of Mamfikile Ntangase, whether them in their individual capacity, sitting in the power spaces of government, have ever done anything to really help umndeni kaMam Ntangase to find peace, because they themselves cannot find peace, seeing as the murderers obviously are a big risk to her children and her grandchildren and the rest of her family. And I'm asking this question to demonstrate something, because I'm listening to all these speakers from government, and I'm just hearing PR exercise after PR. I'm a PR practitioner by profession. I spent 20 years in the public relations and brand communication space in various sectors in the private sector. And I know cheap PR when I hear it.
I would like to come.
Yes, you can.
Let me first focus on the issue of teenage pregnancy and some of the concerns that have been raised. You're raising a concern, Ma, around children who are poverty-stricken, who then become victims of these perpetrators. But let us not lose sight of the fact that government have put in place anti-poverty measures, programs that are pro-poor. For instance, we have school feeding schemes. We have sanitary dignity program that we are providing sanitary pads to the girl child who reached the onset of menarche. We have scholar transport. We have school uniform that we are providing. We also provide the NSFAS, and there's an amount that we are giving to both the girl child and the boy child, and they use it for the procurement of their own personal needs or personal care. Now that on its own is a demonstration of what government is trying to do to ensure that these children are not depending or relying on these so-called sugar daddies. The sugar daddies that are there are the ones that are really out of line, and the ones that will find a way of persuading these children to a point where those children, in terms of power relations, they are unable to negotiate those power struggles. But government is doing more. Let's come to the issue of economic power. I was supposed to talk to Pillar 5 of the National Strategic Plan. It talks about economic power. And I'll cite just a few programs that we've already put in place. One of them is the 40% pronouncement by the president in terms of public procurement. We're using public procurement as a leverage to empower women and make sure that this is the only tool that we can use for women to access government services and be in a position to be empowered completely. We are training women on this 40% public procurement spend. We have radio talk shows that we had to run in 11 official languages, on all the languages, Zulu, Sotho, Setsonga, educating women on how to tender, how to do business with government, what it means to be business compliant, and all of that. We can share even some of those modules so that you can see what we've been doing. We're also targeting women-owned businesses. We bring them on board and train them on how to trade with government in terms of these issues. We are also unlocking the section that deals with the sanitary towels. Instead of government procuring from all these big conglomerates, we're building capacity of women so that they too are in a position to tender and be the ones that are supplying at the end of the day. We have influenced the tender specifications of the various government departments to ensure that the financial inclusion of women does not fail in this instance. Women are included. We've pledged 21 billion over the MTF for the implementation of the National Strategic Plan. And we are following huge amounts where we know we have infrastructure fund. How does it come on board to assist women in this case? But also we have programs around sexual harassment and violence in the world of work. We've just signed with the Department of Labor, the Code of Good Practice on sexual harassment and violence in the world of work. We will be ratifying the convention, the C-190 convention, as government on these matters. Lastly, we've had what we call Work On, Women's Economic National Assembly. We had to bring in private sector. We are unlocking the supply chain on the private sector side. But let me also indicate, we took all the sector master plans, the critical ones of government. We applied a gender lens. This very department that is deemed to be not competent applied a gender master plans to all these sector master plans, which has a transformation chapter and a budget, and ensured that there are clear targets and interventions for women from the agro-processing aspect, from the textile industry, and all of that. You are most welcome to engage us through the Pillar Collaborative, where all the women have come together and they share their experience and expertise in pulling together towards the empowerment of women of South Africa. So in that way, and the last one that you asked as well about whether we are responsive on time, we are setting up rapid response teams in all the municipalities, working with provincial government departments. With these rapid response teams, they are meant to be agile in their responses. We haven't had them before. And it's part of the response of the 24 demands that we're having to say in each district, we will have one plan, a district model that is gender responsive, that has rapid response teams where we bring social development, health, doctors, you name it, nurses, under one roof, like a war room. As and when we receive all these cases, they get deposited there, we deal with them. There's a heat map, we follow through and see where do we redirect resources where we need those resources most. And in strengthening our teeth as a department, this very national strategic plan has an M&E framework, a framework that has clear indicators and clear targets. It gets monitored on a monthly basis. The report gets deposited to the president on a monthly basis. We are holding director generals accountable. We are presenting to the foresight of the clusters of all the director generals to make sure that all the DGs are held accountable. The annual performance plans of each department have infused the national strategic plan and they have resourced it appropriately within their baselines. So that is the work that this department has been doing, and we will continue to provide strategic support and guidance and leadership to all the departments that are supposed to be dealing with these issues of gender-based violence and femicide. What I want to appreciate at this point is the fact that we have a pillar collaborative platform, one that involves government and civil society. In this instance, there's no finger pointing. We are all in one platform for all the 6 pillars. We've come up with a program of action for all the 6 pillars, and we are implementing all of them. And we open it up to everyone. We are inviting every woman and every man who is interested on these issues to join these pillar collaborative platforms so that there's no one who's going to say government account, yet civil society is also part of us. All of us, we're supposed to account. All of us, we are going to do this work in our little corners, and we will ensure that we are there at all times and we are responsive at the end of the day. We have tabled an annual report for the 24
Pastor, I
demands.
honestly need to
May I
ask
finish,
Mam
Madam?
Shoki a question.
Her to finish. Wait for her to finish. Yes, yes, just
You
finish.
can, you
We
should.
have compiled an annual report that has been recently launched by the President. That annual report gives an account on the work that we have done since the launch of the National Strategic Plan to date. Please have sight of that report so that where there are areas of concern, you can then engage us. Just recently, we were informed that there's a police station in Soweto that doesn't have rape kits. We were in one of the committees. We picked up the phone. We checked the police station. We have reports, and they report about the rape kits that they have on a monthly basis. And that police station was saying, right now, I'll put you on a conference call. What is it? The video call. Let us show you the rape kits at this point in time. I think sometimes you must give credit where credit is due, but where there are areas of development, we welcome those and let us be made aware. Let us pull together. GBV is a problem for all of us, and it requires a multi-sectoral approach. I'd like to pause there,
Thank
Madam.
you, Shoki. But before you go, there is a question that is asked, are these programs reaching people in the rural areas as well?
Indicate and acknowledge that, of course, rural areas for quite some time have been forgotten. What we are now doing through the very district model, we're working through your COCTA department, your traditional affairs, and we are taking these programs to the communities. We're working with the traditional leaders. We're training the traditional leaders on these matters just to make sure that at the end of the day, these areas are not forgotten. Right now, we have the GBVF fund by the private sector that has been launched by the President. They have started allocating funding. Their main priority is rural areas and informal settlements, without neglecting the urban areas and the peri-urban, but they have given a percentage of how much. I just don't have the figures right now with me. I've had a meeting with them. We addressed civil society organizations that petitioned government. We took them through the annual report. They were happy. Mama Shehu, they sent a report to say, thank you, government. We didn't know that you have done so much, and we are coming. We are going to be part of these pillar collaboratives. We want to add value as women of South Africa. Whatever skill or expertise that you have, bring it to the fore so that we pull this together as women of South Africa.
Thank you, Ms. Shabalala. Mema Shiko, I'm going to come to you. Let me take this caller who has been waiting here on the line. Good evening. You are through to UBN.
So much for the opportunity to talk to you. This is my name Kabele. I'm one of the girl child ambassadors in Gauteng Department of Social Development. I just want to raise a few things here. And the most key thing that I would want to raise before I provide my input is that until the influencers or the department, the main department that have got to do with empowering children, like your education and social development, come together to realize how concrete is children protection, we are not going to win with programs only. I want to strongly say that we have got in different countries like Australia, which you have the Department of Child Protection. That's how serious they are taking matters of children or challenges encountered by children. And I want to raise an issue here to say we have so much programs at the department that are very critical to have. However, we keep on introducing programs based on the scenarios or incidents that happen. I will give you an example. We had a very good program after Karamo's death. I don't know if you all still remember Karamo's death, the one who was killed by the partner. There was one program called GPG, Girl Child Campaign. That was a vibrant campaign whereby all girls so wanted to participate into. But when you look now, it has been called off. The reason for it being off is not even clear. I've been sitting for meetings where they were advocating for that program to continue, but it was called off, and that is one of my other concerns. And the one major thing that I also want to raise here is that officials should be granted an opportunity to have resources. I might be very keen and want to influence change and reach out and empower children out there, but we realize that we've got limited resources within the sector. You want a car, 3 cars will be used by 20 officials within the department. So I think we also need, like the influencers need to strengthen the capacity of resources, because we have got cell phones, but you realize within the cell phone, you are given a very limited airtime that you have to reach out to a certain child that needs your assistance, but you don't have such. So that is one particular challenge as well. And even in schools, we need to have school social workers, whereby children who are experiencing challenges within the school will get immediate assistance, because immediate assistance is one thing that is lacking. So we need to empower these children and also equipping officials that have to have these children to have resources so that they can be able to reach out and impact change within the programs that we're always imposing. Do not implement programs because there's a case that happened only. Let that program continue even if the case is now forgotten. That is for me. Thank you.
You said your name is Maina.
My name is Maina. I am one of the appointed girl child ambassadors for that campaign that was introduced by the Premier. But so far, it seems like the program has been forgotten and it is no longer effective.
So, in other words, you are saying that we are reactionary in a way.
Yes.
We react when there is a problem, but as time goes on, the programs are abandoned.
Yes.
It is like when there is a problem, we will say we are doing this and that to solve this problem. We are setting up a task team. We are getting this program in place in order to address this. But immediately when the problem gets out of people's minds, then we abandon the program.
No longer given attention. It is no longer allocated any budget. And that kills even the motto of us as ambassadors, because we are there and get to be appointed to say, we are there and get to be appointed to influence change. But when they say this program is now off and we no longer have a budget for it, it also turns us off, and we don't understand what was the main reason for this program to begin. Because the immediate respondence is very high in South Africa. If we've got a case today of one person that is killed, you'll hear people donating, helping within that particular week. But come the second week, we have forgotten. And I think if I was part of the influencers, I would want to see the Department of Child Protection within the system of South Africa. Maybe that's where we're going to take it serious and maintain the status quo of saying, like, dealing with the challenges that the children are hardly facing at this current generation. We are in a state whereby we need immediate responders to child protection services, to challenges that we're encountering now.
Thank you so much, Mina. It really helps that you came through. We are hearing it from somebody who says, yeah, I'm an ambassador, one of the ambassadors of these programs, and this is what is going on. I'm not saying that she's representing every program, but here she is raising a very concerning issue that programs are not followed through, they are not resourced, and that results into frustration. And we are talking about serious things here. We are talking about something that is not supposed to be tolerated. Child rapes are not supposed to be tolerated. Any healthy society would never tolerate that. But isn't it that in South Africa there is this culture that people do things, we say that it will be news for a week and then it will be forgotten about. Membership, let me give you the time, because I can see that you are burning to put across whatever that you wanted to say. Over to you before I go on to read these questions that I have here that have come through WhatsApp.
Thank you, good pastor. I wanted to find out from the PR proponents of this masculine and very toxic and extremely inept and corrupt government. Fortunately, I don't have to be accused of hating anyone, because all of us have experienced this government for at least 27 going on 28 years. So I don't have to prove anything. The proof is in the pudding. But I want to know from Mam Shoki that if they have such marvelous and well-researched programs that everybody is participating in, as she says, that all business people were there. I'm not sure who she's talking about, I've got a lot of friends who are in business. I myself am in business. I don't know which are these programs that all business people and all civil society are. I'm in civil society as well, and I know many women who are in civil society. Why? What happened to the 2/3 of the women who lost their jobs with the hard lockdown imposed by Cyril Ramaphosa and his cabinet last year, draconiously so, in April or March? And what is the status of, I'm talking about those almost 3 million employees, 2/3 of whom were Black women in the lower level jobs. And currently, why would we be sitting at a growing unemployment? And of course, continuing to be threatened to grow by the imperialist capitalist entities together in partnership with government that are threatening to fire workers and really holding a gun against the workers' head, that if you don't inject the jab from Pfizer, J&J, and whoever else is making massive profits from the so-called pandemic, why are we sitting with growing unemployment? Because when you have a good economic policy, an effective economic policy, you see the fruits of that economic policy in jobs, not sex for jobs or tenders for jobs or jobs given to girlfriends, cronies, etc. of the African National Congress, jobs that come about as a result of sound economic planning that is meritocratic, that supports sound entrepreneurs with sound ideas that are real, not based on them giving sexual favors or participating in some kind of tender corruption. Why would we also have seen such a terrible Auditor General's report that came out earlier this year about the previous financial year and the terrible, dire state of maladministration in local government especially, and of course, billions and billions of rands being looted from national government departments as well. I don't want to talk about Gauteng. It is always the worst when it comes to the, why would we be seeing all these terrible, why would we see a spike of rapes during COVID of 10,000 women just in the second quarter of the police report this year? 10,000 women reported rapes. If we have such a beautiful program in government that is so all-encompassing, why are we seeing this? And why have I not received a response from the Department of Women about what happened with Mamfikile Ntshangase case, who was brutally murdered for defending her community in Opondweni? Why am I not getting a response? We can't be PR'd to death. We can't. The proof is in the eating. 60, close to 70% of Black young people are not able to find jobs in the formal or informal economy. Why would that be the case today? Why are we having a worsening society? Why do we see such growing violence supported by the police statistics? Why are we seeing such growing rates of corruption? If, according to Mamshoki Tabalala, we have such a brilliant government that has such beautiful economic and social plans that allegedly all of us know about.
Namashiko. Yeah. You are getting us in touch with our pains. Serious ones. And I'm just happy that we are talking about this. We are dealing with this. And I'm really praying that from this, we're going to see some action. We're going to see things happening that are really, really going to help the people of South Africa. We need people who are vocal, who can be able to speak, to talk about what is going on, not just brushing each other, not telling each other the truth. I've got a caller on the line. Good evening. You are through to UBN.
Greetings, Pastor.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Pastor, you're speaking to Tendo Lakine Mabandu from Midway. I have a few matters to address. The first one being about accountability, which was posed by one of the public servants. So I wanted to ask, when they speak of the civil society being held accountable and the perpetrators being held accountable, why don't we hold the government itself accountable for perpetrating rapes in school? Because the government, they were the ones that they published the use and the promotion of contraceptives, condoms in schools. And when we speak about condoms in schools, we're meaning that children under the age of 18 are going to be having access to this kind of things. And moreover, they speak about how they are going to be limiting the access of children to being raped because they placed government measures like giving out feeding schemes and holding everybody accountable. The question that I have unto them is, how do you hold everybody accountable when you fail to hold yourself accountable for not being able to protect children? Because firstly, if you're speaking about protecting children, why do you then put instruments that can help to rape a child in schools? This is why we'll be having the cases of the child who was raped in a school toilet. A child was in grade 1. This was news that was reported on the 19th of November in Sebokeng. A child raped in a school toilet by a teacher where condoms were in place. Don't you think that these condoms that you're placing in schools are more of like a way to teachers and other people to rape the children in schools? Moreover, we go to the thing about providing feeding scheme. How does feeding scheme stop a perpetrator from raping me? How does a feeding scheme and holding people accountable stop perpetrators from raping me? This is when we ask the government, why did you remove the laws of police officers going to parties, going to events that are being held? Because we find that children under the age of 18 are able to attend large events where they are victims of rape. This is where we tell you that more than 12 children were raped in an event that happened in South Africa. This is one of the statistics that we need to consider. The officer that is sitting there, why aren't they speaking about it? What has happened to the officials, the government policies, the police officers who have stopped going to parties? Because we find children going to parties. And the last thing that we need to talk about is that the speaker spoke about programs that are easily forgotten. The reason why we have programs that are easily forgotten is because we have an ineffective or a government that does not have efficacy or a sense of emergency on certain things. Because this is where they will tell you that only news, public news, they will only speak about movements for a year. This is where we tell you about the hashtag in my next case has been forgotten. These kind of trends have been forgotten because the government does not publish this kind of things, but their main aim is to publish things like they're going to be putting condoms in schools, where in primary schools. These were news that were reported by the president when he gave his presidential address. Aren't these the kind of problems that we need to start dealing with? Let's not fight a fight from outside. Let's fight the problem of rape from inside, where we deal with the officials that are placing out laws of teaching. How do you teach a child who is in grade 8 about sex? How do you teach a child in grade 9 about masturbating? Isn't this encouraging children to go out and sleep with each other? And if we speak about children under the age of 18 sleeping with each other, this is statutory rape because none of the children have consented into such things, right? This is where we find the rise of teenage pregnancy rising by 36.7% just in 2021. These are the problems that we need to deal with, and we need officials to account for this because they are the ones that are placing this kind of laws by putting condoms and things like removing laws of promoting ID checks when you go to parties. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tendo. There we go. We are told that, yeah, you are talking about rapes at school, but you are placing condoms there for young children to see. Some people believe that that is something that is also promoting what is going on right now with our children getting raped at school. Same with the issue of the grants that are given to mothers. Some people believe that those grants which are given freely to young mothers are also influencing them to go out there and fall pregnant. We have got many, many beliefs with regard to the source of the problems. And I'm going to be asking our guests to respond to questions that were directly leveled to them. and to also do their final inputs. This is a very important subject to engage with because really it involves our children, it involves women who are vulnerable, who are not looked at as people but as objects by people with sick minds. And these problems are going on, especially when they are not spoken about, when nothing is done to address them. And here, I see, before all of you can respond and do your final comments, somebody is asking, did you empower policemen as well? Because police stations are not service friendly. And another one says that I'm not happy with these master plans that I'm hearing because teenage pregnancy is still on the rise. And Cheryl says religious leaders also have a role to play to teach morality and be a safe haven for the victims of the rapes. And Ntokozo says, what are the implementations in place in dealing harshly with these psychopaths who prey on women and children? Winnie says, what are you doing to bless us? What are you doing to bless us? Nomakwezi says, programs are there, but they are ineffective. Sekofaso says, I don't even know some of the programs that are mentioned here. And Lieutenant Colonel, I've got questions that are coming directly to you here as well. This one says, I've a question directed to Lieutenant Ntambo. Are they doing enough as police in bringing perpetrators of teenage pregnancies to book? And does she still believe in the justice system of South Africa? And another one says, this is coming from Cheryl, it says, my question is, when these children get reported as pregnant or give birth at hospitals or clinics, what procedures are followed by the state because someone impregnated those children? Who gets arrested? I don't think it even needs anyone, whether it be family members or whoever, to open a case. The child should just tell them who, and they should just arrest the nearest family members to get the truth of who impregnated that child. It might not be a family member, but the child will eventually speak. What is the state doing? Their act should be mandatory in this case. Give nobody a choice in the matter as sorry, I don't get what she meant here, because it says as people, the rapist, or give no one a choice in the matter with regard to this reporting of rapists. And another one says, after they are reported, what does the state do? What is the arrest and conviction rate? And Mantati from Northwest says, I have children at 3 different schools. The only time I heard about the nurses at school is when they give condoms. Advise those who want to prevent HIV and blood to donate. How can a child be taught about prevention, not abstinence? Be given condoms. How will the teacher stop to rape girls at school? South Africans are really good on how to advise about sex. No teaching on how to run away from that. Indeed, if children had been tested eyes at school, I would have been a happy mother at the rural areas. The rural area I'm staying in. What happened to those men who impregnated Those 600 girls aged 9 and 10, this is another one. What did social department do? What did the police do? And Emmanuel says justice system is also failing the citizens of this country. Media houses only provide reports about the data, number of girls who are pregnant, but nothing is said about perpetrators. And the last one, SAPS is so proud to provide statistics of the victims who open cases against their perpetrators, but hardly provide statistics of the arrests made. And as you see the headlines there, yeah, these births are unacceptably high in South Africa, and we cannot just see it and not do anything. Let us hear from our guests their response and their final remarks. Over to you, Lieutenant Colonel.
Thank you, Pastor Makuba. Starting from the beginning, from Memandisa, there was a time where really we had a problem with the crime kits, but that problem was solved. Today we've got the crime kits. I can assure her about that the crime kits are there. And even by then, there was no way to say a victim was turned away because there was no crime kits. Because we have to go to other provinces and wherever, even other hospitals where they assisted us. So, but from today, the crime kits are there. There is no way that you can go to the police station and not get a crime kit. I can even give her my cell phone number that should that incident happen, you can call me. So coming to the investigation, Mamandisa, it takes long. I think from the head news that we are having today, you can see some of the cases, they are very old. It's because of the technology that we are having today that is being updated. Because it does not mean that if today you didn't arrest a person, then tomorrow you won't get a person. That investigation, that case, yes, it can run cold for time being, but day will come where we will have to, we've got evidence, then the person is arrested. Yes. Then coming to the caller from saying that why the police are not policing the clubs. You know what? It is the community who is organizing the clubs. They are organizing the clubs, the same community that is organizing the club. They are allowing this to happen in their presence. Because if really I'm a person who is organizing a party in my area and then I allow kids to come there and drink, then I will come there as a police officer to come and now it's reactive. Why the person who was there didn't do a proactive role to say that kids go home or do something or can phone the police station to say that there are kids that they are here that they want to come. Some of these problems are created by the same community that now they are complaining about the same thing, to say that the police are not doing this, but when it happens, the police are not there. So this is another problem. So community, let's work together. Report whatever that you are seeing that is happening. Then so that we can stop it maybe before it happens. Because in most cases, in these cases that are being reported, it is just a reactive now. Because things have happened. But if one person has acted proactively before it happened, it shouldn't maybe we are having here today. Looking into the situation of the child pregnancy. We are looking to the child pregnancy, but where are we coming from? Until today we are having this child pregnancy. Somebody else somewhere has seen this thing happening, but today we are talking about the pregnancy, but it was never reported. Because if it's not reported, we are not going to know it about it. We will only get it when now it's a reactive to say this has happened. So also again, community, let's work together. If you see a thing that is happening, I can hear that now the police also are not doing good. But we've got the lines where you can report the police to say that I went there, this and this has happened. We are investigating those complaints against the police. And some, they are out of the service because of that, of not doing the job. All the police officers are given a duty by the government to work for the communities of South Africa. So if that person is not doing the job, then really it means that that person, we have to part ways with that person. So we've got those people. Yes, the cases are reported are very high. It's just that if it's reported, some of the cases you don't get to arrest a person today. it takes some time a person to be arrested. And some of the cases, also the same committee that we are serving, they will come and say, I'm no longer interested in this case today. So the case is thrown out of court. But in the cases of the children, we really fight for those cases because the law is there. It said if the child has been raped, then that child must be protected. In some cases, we even arrested parents for protecting the perpetrators. Maybe it is not that much put out there on the media, but we've got such cases where the parents, that they protected the perpetrators, they were arrested. So maybe I think we should more publicize more of such cases. Coming to the conviction, yes, you are getting conviction, but now it's another department who is dealing with the conviction. What are we doing? We are taking all the cases, we send it to the court. The court, they will have to decide. And these days, the court, they take whatever, because here in South Africa, every person is got the rights. I've got a right to remain silent. I've got a right to a lawyer. It's another process. It cannot be say, because so and so today, we all know that person is arrested, then tomorrow is going to be convicted. It takes some processes for a person to be really convicted. Today, we are working with what we've got, the forensic database. That is, every person that has committed an offense today or previously, that person, if you can take the buccal, it's just a speed trap for you, waiting for you any day if you have committed, especially these sexual offenses cases, the rapes and whatever, the sexual assault and whatever. That thing is just a speed trap for you. Never mind how long it can take, but one day you'll get into that speed trap. We'll know who is this. Because in some cases, you'll find that the case is reported, nobody's seen. Nobody can come and attest to say, I've seen so and so has done this. So, but because of the technology that we are having today, then the speed trap is waiting for you, or somebody else tomorrow will come and say, you know what, my conscience does not allow me. I want to tell this has happened. Such cases, we've seen such incidents where the people were convicted for rape, so many cases. That has happened over some years back, but because of what the technology you are having today, then we've got to court them. I know community, they want that. If the case is open today, we want to see the person arrested tomorrow, the other day the person has been convicted. It is not really sometimes goes like that. There are processes in place that we have to go through them so that we can really get to that person. To say that yes, so that when the conviction is happening, we know that we have convicted the really person that has committed this case. So coming back to my closing statement, I would like to say communities, especially parents, let us report these cases. Let us not be bribed by these people. Because some of the cases, like today, we are talking about a large number of pregnancies of the teenage girl. But how do we say that a parent, you didn't see your child? Parents, we need to know our children. We need to monitor our children, especially the girl children. We know when the child is changing. You can see as a parent, unless if that parent is not in the child's life. I heard some of the callers say is talking about the blessers. We've got a problem. Here in South Africa, if a person wants to establish a thing, he just establish it without any legally framework to say that, okay, I want to be a blesser today. Who is going to bless you? Who are you going to bless? And who is the blesser? And how far does it go? That is another problem that we get. Anyone who wants to do a thing, is just happening, then it continues. Today we are having a situation that has started long time ago, and then it was never put into frame to say that you cannot go this way. What is the purpose of that? Because we also have to look at the purpose of, if you establish this thing, is it going to save the country, the communities, or is going to destroy it? So these are other questions that really as a community we need to talk about. That let it not be anyone who wants to go and do whatever, then it's fine. Then it's okay. We are working with that. It's because excitement from the kids, it's too much. So, but now that excitement, it needs to be regulated by laws. And also the people who are establishing that, they must also be, they must come out and tell us if I want to be a blesser or a blessee, who I'm blessing and what is happening in between those blessings. Because if now we are in this situation, where do we come? Now we are reacting to what has been, we've seen that this thing is going there, but today we are reacting because it has happened. Even if it's not a blesser, but the things that are happening under our nose, we know it, but today we are really saying now, it's a crisis. Some of the crises, they are happening under our nose, where we can stop it.
I want you to just help me here before you go, because maybe even some people at home have got this question. When a case is reported, and this is a case of a child who is said to have been raped, and the child is pregnant or has a baby, is that case not simple to solve? Because there is a baby or there is a pregnancy. Are not those cases easy to solve, where you can do DNA testing? I don't know.
Yes, those cases we can solve them, but even them, they take some processes, because if the child, now I can see my child that is pregnant now, and then I'm saying is this person. But in order for that case to be proven beyond reasonable doubts to say that this is the fact, the child is to be born, or the termination of pregnancy must be done so that we can get the DNA of that particular child, so that we can refer it to the perpetrator.
I hear it that you're talking about time, because you are saying that this can take a very long time and technology is getting updated. Maybe the message to our government is that we don't have much time, because things are so much out of control. If there are things that can be done in order to update technology speedily, let it be done. Let resources be pumped towards that, because we are in a crisis situation here. Our children are giving birth. It cannot be regarded as normal. It cannot wait for another day. It can't wait, really. We really need to see action being taken speedily, so, because by the time somebody get arrested, they've already done damage that is irreversible. And you might find that many people are already molested, raped by the same perpetrator. So really, we are really crying out that let something be done. And maybe we can even send you back to your superiors, where you can tell them that, yo, the people are crying. The people are complaining. Okay. Thank you very much. And there was another one. I don't know if it's fair for me to ask you to respond to that. They say, do you still believe in the justice system of South Africa?
The justice of South Africa, I still believe in it, although it takes some time and there are processes in place. It's just that sometimes, as I've indicated, that we want things to be done in a quick process, although we have to regard everybody's rights along the way. Yes, the justice is there, because we couldn't have had so much conviction if we don't believe in a justice. Okay. Justice is still there. It's just that we must give time to the justice to happen.
Thank you. And Lieutenant Colonel, thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it very much. Let me go to Mayor Shabalala. Your response and your final comments.
Okay, I was struggling to unmute. I just want to indicate that government is drafting a prevention strategy, also one that is multi-sectoral, with all the development partners and civil society organizations, so that we are more proactive in our responses, and we redirect resources where they are needed most in terms of prevention than having our resources being geared towards being reactive at all times. So that is a priority. It should be concluded soon, and it has to be taken to cabinet for endorsement. What I need to also indicate is that I commit to ensuring that the data that we will receive, it's not going to be data that will just lie around, but we will plot the data spatially in terms of townships, in terms of villages and municipalities, and make sure that where there are no programs, we design or ignite new programs, and where there are programs that are more docile, we then scale up on those existing programmatic interventions, because that will be the purpose of the data. Not so much about following through on the perpetrators. Yes, that is another part of it. But the other important part is to say, where is this problem highly concentrated? Can we have a heat map on this matter in particular and have targeted interventions in this regard? Lastly, the government is working on this economic reconstruction recovery plan, which has a lot of focus around, your aggressive infrastructure investment, interventions from issues that relate to, gender equality and economic inclusion of women and youth, the green economy interventions, the mass public employment interventions that we are putting in place, but strengthening the food security aspect, because that is where women and children are hardest hit. Also our macro interventions as government, including issues around energy security for women also as service providers and service recipients, because without energy, what else can women do? And lastly, supporting for the tourism recovery part and growth, and where women are mostly located in this sector. But I've just deposited my email address to Mema Shego. I really would like to extend an olive branch and see how best we can assist on some of the matters that are of concern to yourself. I do believe that we have a responsibility to serve, and we have a responsibility to work with everyone that has consent. Concerns. You are also our eyes and ears to society. And I do pledge my commitment to do my best in serving and working with you. Anytime when you need assistance, I may not be able to answer to some of those cases in particular, but we do have a network of the Interministerial Technical Task Team where NPA sits, where justice sits, social development sits. As a collective at that high level, we should be in a position to respond to some of those specific concerns or questions that are affecting society, particularly that you are aware of in terms of progress and all. But I do believe NPA is on board with most of these cases. However, my support is pledged, and I've therefore deposited my email so that the two of us can see how best do we render a service that is going to be of value to women of South Africa. You have my word for this. Thank you. And to all, I do pledge that on behalf of the department, we'll continue to do our level best. It may not be an easy road, but something possible can always be done with your support, of course. I would like to pause
Before
there.
you go, Meshabalala, Mema Shego spoke about poverty that was brought about by lockdowns. She spoke about that passionately, that there are many people who lost their jobs. Do you want to make a comment with regard to that? And sorry to do this to you, but I see that many people are commenting about the programs. You know, the way your programs are so beautiful, you know, when you articulate them, one gets excited. The programs are so beautiful, and you wonder, why are they not working? Because then people will end up thinking that maybe you went and you imported them from overseas, and now the implementation part, you are getting stuck there. If you have designed these programs or you are trained in these programs, can we really see these programs reaching the intended recipients so that we can see the benefits? Because the programs that you are outlining, Shabalala, they are beautiful. Okay, over to you.
I cited a few programs earlier on. I'm not sure who is not aware of programs like the school feeding scheme, I'm not sure in society who's not aware about the scholar transport that caters for children within the 5-kilometer radius of where they're living. I'm also not so sure who is not aware by now about the sanitary dignity program that we are providing sanitary pads to schools, farm schools, quintile 1 and 3 schools, and special schools. And those are children who are hardest hit by poverty. There's also the grants that we are giving to those parents. I heard you earlier on to say, some are saying these grants are actually causing problems for these women and all. For me, I still believe that it's one of those anti-poverty measures on our side. I've mentioned all of those. If there's anyone who's not aware of such programs in government, the school uniform program, I'm not so sure. We'll have to ask those departments that are providing those services to create more awareness. But there is thorough screening and assessment in ensuring that those who deserve to get these, these services are the ones that will benefit at the end of the day. I've also spoken to the Economic Reconstruction Recovery Plan and its 9 pillars. And if it means we need to have a session where we bring in the economic cluster here with their gurus and everybody, we talk to it at length, and we talk to what is it that we are trying to achieve with this plan, and how is it going to benefit women, youth, and persons with disabilities. Because as we speak, we are finalizing our mainstream plan on issues of women, youth, and persons with disabilities on this Economic Reconstruction Recovery Plan. But I do believe that, yes, more can still be done. Whatever that we have done, there's a view that it's not enough. We are more than willing to take it to the next level and make sure that we mobilize resources from private sector, from development partners, and through the very section of the private sector GBV fund, and make sure that we resource more of these organizations that are on board. And lastly, it is my dream and my wish one day to see civil society organization belonging to one umbrella body, so that when we talk to civil society, we talk to one body that can reach out to many. And I know many would like to get to that point. They aspire to get to that point. And I do know that Memashiko, if we all put our heads together, we can get to a point where we have an umbrella body for civil society, so that we reach you as a common body and we talk in one voice through that common body. At this stage, we are still facing this problem of fragmentation, and I don't think it's your doing or any other person's doing. We just need to put our heads together, both as government and civil society, on how do we then build this one body for all members of civil society, so that when you speak, others don't say, she's not speaking for us, we didn't know, we were not aware, and all of that. That is an area of development, and it's a challenge not only for civil society, for both us and civil society. And I think we can reach somewhere if we can focus our attention to it. I would like to pause there, Madam.
Thank you very much, Meshabalala. We really appreciate your inputs, and we appreciate that you availed yourself to be with us in this program. And right now, I'm going to go to Me Tekiso, your response and your final comments. Me Tekiso, over to you.
Me?
You are unmuted. Thank you.
So much, Pastor. I heard the comments made around the issues of grants, that they seem to be, encouraging, young girls to be pregnant. I need to indicate that as the department, we did some research, and the 2014 research did indicate that there's no evidence to that really children are, getting pregnant for the benefit of child support grant. Instead, it demonstrated, as it was also confirmed by Statistics SA, that those children that were pregnant in 2020 registered their children in 2021. So that is also a clear indication that children are not necessarily getting pregnant because of, child support grant. But the drivers that we have indicated when we were outlining, interventions in place, which SAPS did, Meshoki did, I also did, and also, Department of Health did outline those drivers into teenage pregnancy. And I want to affirm our commitment as the Department of Social Development that we will intensify our prevention and early intervention programs, which we have heard the outcry that they are not really impactful. Therefore, our research that we are embarking on as part of our monitoring and evaluation for this impact, we will intensify that. And again, another area of concern is lack of knowledge of these programs at local level. And we are engaging our provincial and district, Department of Social Development to resuscitate the local child care and protection forums so that there can be community participation, including children, because we do have dialogues with children in terms of rendering services. As I indicated that we do have child ambassadors in various, actually in all provinces, we do have child ambassadors whom we are hoping that they would really spread this message of, prevention programs, the programs I've mentioned, such as CHOMI, such as YOLO, so that our stakeholders can implement and reach even the deep rural areas which are not receiving attention. And I want to once again indicate that working together with communities in implementing the 365 days child protection program, we can make impact, because it is important that we prevent all these social ills within our respective communities, and where there are occurrences, reporting needs to be done so that social workers can take note and intervene, because if instances of these child abuse cases are within families, such children should be removed into alternative care such as foster care, or even children's homes, or even temporarily safe care, whilst the parents and caregivers are actually supported, in terms of rehabilitation, so that children can be reunified back with their families if reunification is feasible. Another area that we are going to intensify, which is also in the program of action, is that massive media campaign. We are saying that we need to ensure that our radio stations are actually utilized so that we can have maximum reach in terms of education and empowerment of children, parents, and relevant key stakeholders in the care and protection of children, because we all believe that we should really create a environment for our children to flourish. Thank you so much, Pastor.
Thank you very much, Kekiso. We really appreciate your inputs. And as I said when I was talking to Me Shabalala, these programs that we are talking about that our government is putting into place, they are attractive when you hear about them and their descriptions. We would really want to see the things reaching the intended people so that they benefit society. These problems cannot continue to go on. The people of South Africa really have to sort of stand up and get involved in whatever that can be done, whatever programs there are that can solve this problem of teenage pregnancies. Our children cannot just continue to be raped and nothing is done. And you have heard it for yourself. It needs you and me. Thank you very much, Metkekiso. We appreciate your presence in the program. And Mev Fenimutswane, your last comments.
Pastor. just taking off from where you left with Nelisa there with regards to young people or beneficiaries of all these programs. So I wish that, we could have invited young people to be part of the discussions, because as they usually say that there's nothing about us without us. So they should be here. I believe they should be here, attesting to be beneficiaries of these programs, but also to be part of the discussions, because we are also advocating for meaningful adolescent and youth health, adolescent and youth engagement, as a starting point. From the Department of Health, as Meshoki has indicated, as government, we have seen that we have the policies, from different government departments. So that is why we said, as government and stakeholders, and came up with the program of action. So we are looking forward now as a concerted effort to implementing this program of action as government departments, stakeholders, and especially with young people themselves. And of course, we'll continue to preach preventive and promotive health, and of course, servicing young people when they need. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma'am Feni Mutweni. Ma'am Andis, I believe that you are the last one. Your closing comments.
Humbly so, Pastor, and also to all the other fellow panelists who participated in the discussion. I accept the olive branch, as it is called. I think it was a shoki, but we're not fighting, okay? A disagreement, and when we expose one another's weaknesses to one another, yes, we should do it in a very loving and affirming way, but it's very difficult to be loving and affirming to people who steal from you. I can guarantee you that no less than 1 trillion rand has been stolen from the South African public over the last 27 years of the African National Congress being in government. That might be a terrible thing to say to people who are not politicians, right? Because they come here in their context, Abu Mamshoki and everybody else, as civil servants. But we all know, like I said earlier, that the proof is always in the pudding, in eating the pudding. It can look good, it can sound good, it can, it can pop, as the youth say. But the experience of all government departments is absolutely horrendous. I am yet to see improvements. During my time as a public representative, I visited a lot of public facilities. There's a hospital here in Gauteng where a newborn baby's head was beheaded, was taken off during childbirth, because the competence of the medical professionals that were working on that patient was to be doubted. So I also think we need to disabuse ourselves as women of giving credence to terminology, toxic terminology, like blesser. Blessers are by and large child molesters and rapists. That's who they are. There's no such a thing as being a blesser, because now what you're doing is you are legitimizing prostitution. And yes, as womanists and feminist activists in the economic spaces, we fight for the decriminalization of sex work. But do you know why we do it? Not because we acknowledge prostitution as an upstanding and proud profession. It might be the oldest profession in the world, but it's not something to be proud of. Why? Because when you see prostitution on the rise, as you see in South Africa, you must know that the economic conditions and the status of women economically and socially in that country is on the decline, and very fast. And therefore, what happens to poor, vulnerable women who do not have wealthy parents or middle-class parents or family members or any other, backup as support to actually cushion them against the socio-economic decline, they resort to prostitution. Why do they resort to prostitution? Because of the male dominance power that I was talking about earlier. Where else are they going to get money from to feed themselves and their children when the economy is being collapsed by men who are in charge of our economy through government, the reserve banks, the private sector, etc., including international non-political NGOs such as the United Nations, which is so heavily conflicted today in the imperialist agenda of removing freedoms and rights of people, especially Black people in Africa, who have not had much pleasure in freedom over the last 600 years of colonialism and dispossession. I want to come, Pastor, with your indulgence and the indulgence of fellow panelists to final concluding remarks to say, we acknowledge that it's your job to try and defend government, but please be honest about that process. Our government currently is literally committing crimes against humanity by allowing majority of the youth and Black youth to basically wallow in poverty and unemployment, while many of them are sitting with degrees. But if you can go to government today and do a skills audit of both political leaders and senior leadership in government, you'll be shocked how many of them either do not have adequate qualification and experience or have fake and fraudulent qualifications as it is fast being exposed. What are we saying as the Afro-Womanist movement of South Africa? By the way, look forward to the launch of the Afro-Womanist movement of South Africa next year before March. We'll be inviting all reporters to the launch, but we'll be having an amalgamation of all God-loving and God-fearing and law-loving, law-abiding female activists from both the economic and social spaces of South Africa to launch this massive movement that is really fighting for economic justice as well as political and social justice for Black women. What are some of the things that we want to propose? In the space that we are discussing now, we still have not seen government increasing the number of competent and competently employed police officers. We still have not seen government increasing the number of independent police investigative directorate officers to oversee the police. We still haven't heard of government removing the reporting line of the IPID and other related agencies of the state from the Minister of Police. You cannot have the IPID reporting to the Minister of Police. When the Minister of Police is responsible for the police, what ends up happening is the situation that we have now. People can't get justice because the police report to themselves. Even IPID reports to the boss that the police report to, and therefore to hide and defend their cheap egos, the men who always preside over government in South Africa, even through the females who happen to be ministers. Majority of them are patriarchal princesses and patriarchal queens who will only take instructions from their male bosses because they dare not challenge their male bosses. Why? Because their male bosses, through proportional representation in their political parties, are the ones who are empowered to deploy them. Again, one of the things we are doing after we launch our movement is to present 200 independent candidates in 2024 for election directly through constituencies and not through political parties or any other organization that will hold them at ransom every time they need to take decisions that are important for society directly. Some of the economic programs which we'll be focusing on are economic programs to empower economic communities around mining areas. Like I've mentioned earlier, Mamfikile Changa said, up to today, has not received justice, and I promise you, under the current dispensation, she will never ever receive justice. We are launching an education and empowerment program for mining communities so that mining communities understand the amount of wealth which has been dug out from right underneath their noses and shipped off to Asia and Europe and everywhere else where the beneficiation is happening, where beneficiation should be happening. We'll be teaming up, we are teaming up with local community-based organizations who are serious about economic empowerment of communities. And of course, this will be for all males and females and not just targeted at women. We are pushing to assist micro operators in the informal trading sector under the SMME program to receive dignified services on the roads and on the street corners where they are operating, to try and make and earn an honest living for their families, where government is not assisting them. Instead, what government is doing is brutalizing them for trying to earn an honest living. We also want to make sure that we call for government and the private sector to start offering 24-hour service child care support services in communities so that our children are not molested during the day when there are mothers who are earning slave wages, who are earning starvation wages. Like I stated earlier, most workers, Black workers, are Black women who earn 4,000 rands or less a month, and they don't arrive home before 7 in the evening, and they don't leave home before 4 or 5 a.m. And therefore, their children are left in other people's care. And of course, this includes child-headed households. The assistance that government claims and purports to be giving through early childhood development centers is nowhere near adequate. Majority early childhood development centers in the townships and around informal settlements and peri-urban areas do not even remain open until after 3. What happens to those children whose Black mothers are at work breaking their backs for starvation wages? It's not adequate. We are not going to be satisfied with it. We are also going to be calling for a massive support from the legal fraternity, Black legal fraternity in particular, to fight the unconstitutional and evil and illegal and inhumane and attempts at depopulation, specifically in Africa, to fight against the unconstitutional mandatory so-called vaccinations by medicines that have been proven by scientists in Europe and in America that they are not actually vaccines because they were not adequately tested and they were not adequately subjected to the normal vaccination development process. One of the other things that we are going to be doing is calling for massive health programs on civil society's back, not depending on government, because we know what government is going to do. They're going to patronize us and they're going to try to steal our programs only to water them down. We need massive health education programs that emphasize prevention in healthcare, which is what healthcare is all about, that emphasize prevention and that also emphasize knowledge sharing and information sharing about indigenous nutrition, indigenous diet, natural and indigenous nutrition and medicine and diet in the process of prevention. And along the parallel to that program, we are also going to be launching our seed exchange program, which many NGOs are already embarking on. And if we see government starting to pretend to be doing something in that regard, we will know that they are only intervening because they want to actually sabotage and undermine our seed exchange program, mainly focusing on indigenous seeds and mainly focusing on natural products that are not toxified by GMOs and all sorts of other nonsense, which the South African government supports by supporting certain global agricultural companies that have entered and penetrated the market in South Africa only to undermine our own food production. You will be absolutely amazed how healthcare is interlinked with economic empowerment. A non-healthy body, there's a figure of speech in English that says, health is wealth. You can have all the dreams of a brighter future, but if you do not have a healthy body, an immune strengthened body naturally, not through synthetic products that actually induce a lot of chronic conditions such as diabetes, hypertension, cancer, even HIV. We want programs that will empower people in their individual capacity so that they are not dependent on food parcels. We can produce food for ourselves on a subsistence basis in families, especially us Black women, considering what I stated earlier. 70% of us are raising our children without our husbands and our partners who impregnated us, okay? And then the other balance is obviously the mothers who give birth to children as a result of sexual molestation and rape. And so we need to make sure that Black women are as independent as possible, economically as well as politically, so that they start to understand that it doesn't matter how much government and men who are in positions of power in society mostly can patronize you with the 350 now and then, 500 Rand now and then, 3,500, whatever amount of money it is that you expect your husband or your boyfriend or your male partner to give you. That money will never, ever buy you dignity and safety. What that money is going to buy you if a man is giving it to you without any strings attached, so to speak, or government gives you those grants, you must understand that where a man is involved and there's an economic patronage to be dished out, there's always a price to pay. And that price is paid by you as the woman or your children who are underage, as we have observed now with the high stats of children between 9 and 10 years giving birth to children as a result of molestation, or even your not underage children, but your young girls who are in their early 20s, whom we now have learned over the last years are the biggest victims of gender-based violence and femicide and gynecide that are committed also by their partners, by their intimate partners, and which is what makes it so difficult to control. And therefore, the only solution is to focus on the education, empowerment, economic empowerment, and political empowerment of Black women individually and also collectively as a group, so that we start to understand that every other solution which is offered to us is nothing but a farce. It's just an act to make us or rather sustain our repression and our suppression and our oppression by men through the patriarchal system, which is obviously embodied or rather strengthened by or emboldened by neocolonialism, capitalism, imperialism, as we see now, as is happening in the big pharma environment, where very toxic things are being imposed on us in exchange for economic benefits, which is jobs. And so we are about to embark
Thank you,
on the most
thank you,
revolutionary.
Mashiko.
And I really must stress that I have taken the time to listen to all other speakers, and my patience was stretched beyond imagination, but I did listen. And so my parting shot is that I'm very grateful for the government officials, but I want to also state that I think women have understood and are now have reached a point where they've had enough. And so they appreciate, and we all appreciate, that independence from any forms of dependency, whether corporate or government, is the only solution for Black women to get themselves out of this disaster that we find ourselves in. Thank you again for the opportunity to be on your station. And I also want to thank your indulgence by your audience, who I understand are mostly Christian viewers. And so I'd like to just say, may God be with all of you as we move forward with our difficult lives in South Africa.
Thank you very much, Mashiko. You can hear that she's very passionate about what she is saying. And of course, in South Africa, we are frustrated. Most people are frustrated with how things are. And we appreciate people who are standing up, who are doing something about what is going on right now in our country. And I must say thank you very much, Memashiko, for availing yourself to be in this program. You can even read comments that are on Facebook there, because there are many people who were addressing you directly. And I must say to everyone that we appreciate your time. We don't take this for granted, because you could be doing other things, but here you are. You gave yourself time to come and be with the people who are listening right now, who are the viewers. And to you, blessed viewer, you have heard for yourself, and even those who are participating, thank you so much for tuning in. And encourage other people who did not listen to this program to listen to it, because we are going to do repeats of these programs on different platforms, on different channels. We have to put this out there to say that we are frowning upon these child rapes. We don't really, we don't keep quiet when things like this are happening. And you know that for most people, it's not easy to speak about these things. You cannot talk against gender-based violence without risking to get yourself into trouble. So we say it that everybody has got the responsibility to report these rapes. Everybody has got the responsibility to act when things are going wrong, so that we all fight against gender-based violence, we fight against the rapes of children. But we know, most of us, we have experienced it here in our country, that talking about what is going wrong today is sort of dangerous. I say this being a woman and having experienced it myself. When I started opening my mouth to talk against gender-based violence, I nearly got killed here in this country. And after nearly getting killed, I then become the one who gets arrested. And right now, we are looking into the things where we find that victims are victimized on a daily basis. And opening your mouth to talk about what is going wrong in our country is a risk. But we say that we cannot keep quiet when our children are getting raped. We'd rather die. There is no way that we can keep quiet. And to you, church leaders, don't strive to be politically correct. Strive to do what is right in the eyes of God. Speak against injustice. That is your calling. Speak against injustice. Preach what the Bible says. Don't cover what is wrong. Don't protect rapists that are in the church or in the communities. Servants of God, start doing what is right. Because most people don't want to talk against the injustice that we see being perpetuated in our country. They want to be accepted by everyone. They want to please everyone. If we as servants of God do not stand for the truth, where are we headed to as a country? Let us speak for the voiceless. Let us be a voice for the voiceless. Young children are not going to be able to fight for themselves. Let us talk against these teenage pregnancies. Let us go back to the basics, and let us go back to the fear of God. Let us teach our children the fear of God. Let us speak loudly and say, let the Bible go back to schools. Let prayer be offered for our children, even in their schools. Let our children be taught, love your neighbor as you love yourself. That way, we are going to be able to win these fights. Know that if you know of injustice that is perpetuated against the young ones, and you are quiet, you are not reporting it because you are afraid of repercussions, you are also party to the problem. Open your mouth, go tell somebody, confide in somebody, so that we can have solutions. And thank you so much for tuning in. And from me tonight, I say, may the Lord continue to be with you. And may the Lord protect you from COVID-19 disease in the name of Jesus. And I appreciate God who has looked after you, because the fact that you are listening to us right now shows that God has looked after you up until today. And to those who are mourning your loved ones whom they lost, I say, may the Lord heal your heart. And above it all, I want to say, may God protect the children of South Africa. May He empower us as parents to can stand up and be active in changing things that are happening in our nation. In the name of Jesus. God bless you. and from me is bye-bye. Hallelujah.